Joining us this afternoon. My name's Austin Farmer. I'm a project director here at the Retail Coach, and we're starting to do something a little different with our webinars. This is one of our first, what we're calling quick hit webinars, where we try to focus on a state or a region and really just give as much value as we can in the shortest time possible. So we're going to try in less than 30 minutes this afternoon to talk about some retail trends that we see that are really going to impact not only just retail in 2019, but specifically California as well. And so I'll go ahead and jump in. Quick note, as we go through the presentation, I may not have time at the end to answer questions, but if you look on the right side of your screen, on the GoToWebinar panel, there's a questions box. If you have questions as we go through the content, feel free to drop those in there. And even if we can't get to them at the end, I'll respond offline, and I'll make sure that we get an answer to you. So if something pops up and you have a question, feel free to drop it in that box. And even if we can't answer it on here in front of everybody, we'll be sure to follow up with you. So what we're going to talk about today, I'll give a quick intro into the Retail Coach. I know there's a couple of people joining us today that this is really your first introduction to our firm and what we do. So we'll cover that in 30 seconds. Retail movement. So we'll talk about who's doing what in California. So what retailers have been active recently or will be early in 2019. And then some opportunities for you as communities to target some retailers that are expanding and see where there's opportunity to try and go recruit new retailers to your community. And then we'll talk about the top 5 trends in 2019 that we really think are going to impact retail. So real quick about the Retail Coach, we're a retail recruitment and development firm. So we work with communities across the country to recruit retailers and developers. And so what that looks like is we come into a community, we help you identify where there's retail opportunity, and then we actually work as an extension of your team to go out and recruit those retailers and developers to your community. So we have a home office with a retail recruitment team where we go out and find retailers that are expanding, developers that are expanding, and then we actually recruit them on your behalf. We've been doing it for over 17 years. We've worked in well over 450 communities throughout the United States at this point. 30 plus states. I believe we're up to 35 or 36 states at this point. And then a lot of our clients actually hire us multiple times to really help them focus on getting opportunities into their community. So jumping into California specifically, here's what we've seen. There's been a lot of really great retail movement in California. I know a lot of people, if you're like me, you're kind of tired of the retail apocalypse narrative because there's a lot happening, and there's a lot happening in California, and a lot of it's great stuff. And so this is what we've seen in California, and then where we see some opportunities in 2019 with some retailers that are expanding. But the first I want to talk about is Target, and notice the square footage on these. So Target's been really active in California lately. They've had some good store openings this last year, and then for 2019 and 2020, they've slated more than a handful of new store openings. So they're opening a 117,000 square foot store in Goleta. They're opening one in Oakland, 2 in San Diego, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and in Santa Barbara. And notice the square footage on that. So when we talk about Target expanding, I think a lot of people think in terms of big box Target stores and super Target stores. But what we're seeing a lot of, and what I think is going to be really 90+% of their focus moving forward in 2019, 2020, is we're starting to see their smaller format stores and their urban stores. So keep an eye on that, because if you're a smaller community, there are a lot of communities that have typically been kind of ruled out by Target's site selection standards. Either didn't have a big enough trade area, didn't have the population, the demographics. With some of these smaller format stores, some of that goes away. And so there's some opportunity for smaller communities to really connect with Target and to put some potential sites in front of them. So if you're a smaller community joining us, I would really encourage you to look at Target as an opportunity, because they're doing a lot with their smaller format stores. 2020, they've already announced that they're opening a Santa Monica store and Spring Valley as well. Another one is Sprouts Farmers Market. I know many of you are probably familiar with Sprouts, but they just opened in Carlsbad and Fontana. I believe, last week or the week before. And they have new stores planned in LA, San Jose, and San Luis Obispo in the second quarter of 2019. So they've announced that they're opening 30 stores this year, and they've only announced about half of those that are actually planned and they have specific sites for. So if you're a community that you've got a good mix of grocery, or you might even have a gap in the grocery segment, or you've got a retail leakage in grocery specifically, I'd encourage you to look at Sprouts, because they're looking for new locations for the third and fourth quarter of 2019. So there's definitely some opportunity there. The last one we've seen pretty active lately is Black Bear Diner. They've got 122 units now in California, and they just opened two more, Rancho Cucamonga and Turlock. And so they've been really active, and I know that they're looking for new sites as well. Some other national retailers that are expanding that would be good to know, and we'll talk about these first two in a second on one of our retail trend slides. But Glossier and Outdoor Voices, a beauty brand and a women's athleisure brand, are former direct-to-consumer retailers that are starting to open brick-and-mortar stores. So keep an eye on them. Outdoor Voices, the closest equivalent I can think of is kind of like a Lululemon in terms of a little bit higher demographic with that athleisure feel to it. But they're looking to open 50 stores by 2021, which is not a small number by any means. Hummus and Pita Company is looking to open 100 units across California over the next couple of years. There's a franchisee that is kind of spearheading that effort, but that is a great quick serve restaurant where they're looking for franchise opportunities, and they're really looking to grow significantly. In that same vein, Chop Shop, a quick serve restaurant based out of California, is opening at least 5 units in 2019 throughout California. So that would be a good, fast casual kind of quick serve restaurant that if you have leakage in your community in restaurants, those would be two that I would go after that are pretty significant, significantly backed and have good franchise support. Costco's opening, we're expecting them to add 23 new clubs in 2019. Some of those sites have already been determined, but there's also room for competition. So if you don't have a Costco, or if maybe your neighboring community does, or you want to be the first in the region, I'd encourage you now to really start reaching out to them and make sure that you're on their radar, because I know that they're still looking for some of those sites for some of those 23 clubs in 2019. Amazon Go, if you're not familiar with what Amazon's doing in the brick and mortar space, they have a couple of concepts where they're starting to actually grow their physical presence. The first one is called Amazon Books, and it's a smaller format bookstore that's kind of a hybrid between a Best Buy and a Barnes & Noble. So they have books and magazines, but they also have a lot of technology as well. The second concept is Amazon Go, which is a convenience concept. It's a lot more like a 7-Eleven, but it's cashierless. So they opened the first one in Seattle a couple of years ago, and I believe they have 3 existing locations now with a couple on the way. But they're actually pushing for 3,000 new stores by 2021, which is unfathomable. That's such a high level of growth. What we're encouraging people to do is think about where Amazon's distribution centers are. So if you're in a community that is close to or on the fringe of an Amazon distribution center, we're really encouraging those communities to reach out to Amazon and to start getting in front of them for some of their new brick and mortar concepts, especially Amazon Go, because our best estimate is that they're going to start from some of their existing hubs where they have those distribution centers, they have an infrastructure, and they're going to start pushing out from there. So keep that on your radar, because they're about to start doing a lot. I mentioned Target and some of what they're doing with the smaller store formats. The key thing to know about Target, we don't have specific numbers on what they're doing in 2019, but they've grown from 44 to 68 small format stores just in 2018. And I think that's what we're going to see in 2019 is a pretty significant amount of new growth on their either smaller or urban concepts. So keep an eye there. TJ Maxx, so the TJ Maxx group owns Marshalls, TJ Maxx, Home Goods, and there's a sporting goods group. It slips my mind right now, but we're expecting several dozen new stores across their concepts. They've been growing really fast. They just got a new round of investment, so we're looking for them to open at least 20 plus new stores across each of their different concepts. So keep an eye on them. We think they're going to do a lot, especially in the second and third quarter of 2019. So that takes me to the first of our retail trends that we think are going to really impact 2019. The first one is new store concepts. And I mentioned a little bit with Target, but really the overall trend that we're seeing across retail is that there's a small store mentality. So everyone's shrinking their footprint and shrinking their square footage, and really focusing on things like pop-up stores or targeting key demographics. So ways that they can do more with less. So we're seeing a lot of shrinkage in terms of footprint and new store space. Barnes and Noble, for example, is really starting to downsize their spaces, and they're looking at creating community-driven spaces for customers that really maybe only include about half of the books or the physical retail, but also include coffee shops and places that will bring them back to where they can interact with books and goods, but can also come back regularly. So they're building in some experiential type things, working on some digital concepts as well, but they're really focused on that community driven space. IKEA is starting to downsize. And one of the things that they're doing is they're kind of following Target's format. They're looking at urban shoppers and high impact store formats. So really what we're expecting from them is, the days of having a football stadium sized store are probably over. What we're going to see with them is integration of some of their digital tools. So ways to come and experience some things in store and then buy those online and have them delivered to you. And really some more kind of interactive type stuff as opposed to just the huge warehouse where you make your way through and make a day out of it. Nike has a new concept, and I always put a caveat out there about Nike. Nike has such few stores, and they're in such dense urban areas that really the main takeaway from Nike is that they're usually on the front wave of the interactive and the experiential type retail. So a lot of what they end up doing ends up translating to other smaller retailers. So most communities aren't going to get a Nike, but what we'll see happen is we'll see some of their early adoption be baked into what other retailers are doing. So they have a new Nike Live concept, and it's again a smaller, more intimate feel, and they focus on localized products and mobile technology. So getting someone into the store, really customizing the product around them, letting them interact with things, and then using mobile technology to say, hey, great, we can order that and have it delivered to you, or you can come back and pick it up, or having some limited stock actually on hand there at the store. And the last one's CVS Health. So CVS, talk about targeting key demographics. They have two new store concepts that are really targeting a couple different demographics. So the first store they have is a health hub store where they're going to be focusing on the health and pharmacy side of their business. So it's going to be more geared towards kind of that pharmaceutical approach, the quick convenience of having medicine all in one place and kind of a pharmacy. And the other concept is called Beauty IRL, which stands for in real life. And that's really going to focus more on services and beauty and cosmetics. So they'll actually have stylists in the store. You can come in and sample and do things like that. But they're really trying to target each of those demographics separately and hone in on some smaller format stores that they can take advantage of. The second trend that we see is traditional retailers starting to learn from direct to consumer successes. I mentioned Glossier on opportunities and expansion. Basically, direct to consumer is brands that have either been digitally native or online only that sell direct to consumer. They aren't in stores. They don't have distribution or brick and mortar stores. But really what we're starting to see is a lot of those brands were really successful online, and they're taking what they've learned and translating that into brick and mortar success. And so we've seen that over the past few years with Bonobos, which is a men's fashion retailer, Casper Mattresses, who essentially started as an online mattress supplier. They made their own mattress. They delivered it to you. Away luggage. They literally only make 3 sets of luggage that you can purchase. Glossier Beauty and then Allbirds Shoes. All of those brands are starting to come into the brick and mortar world. Casper, as an example, has already planned 200 new stores in 2021 where you can go in. The store is shaped like a home and they have different rooms and you can actually experience the mattresses. But I think we're going to start to see retailers learn from their successes and at least figure out how to benefit from their successes. A great example is Target. So Target is doing this by building partnerships. So if you next time you're in Target, look around, you'll start to notice this. But they're partnering with some of these digital brands. So Harry's Razors, for example, Quip toothbrushes, which is an electric toothbrush company, and Casper. Actually, you can buy Casper mattresses at Target now in a box and bring it home. And there's a couple other retailers that are really starting to do this as well. Best Buy has started to sell Facebook's camera hardware, the Portal system, and Walmart is actually just going out and buying some of these companies. So Walmart actually purchased Bonobos at the beginning of last year. And they've actually gone and purchased a couple of other digital native brands that they can build into their portfolio. So they're not even necessarily competing with some of those companies. They just own them now. But I think we'll see the continued evolution of how brick and mortar retailers are starting to kind of adopt the mindset that these direct to consumer retailers have. Our third trend is the department store is going to be replaced with marketplaces. And you've probably already seen this, but Macy's is a great example of somebody who's doing this well and who's leading the pack. Macy's, instead of being a traditional department store, is trying to build towards more experience and more discovery. So they have a section in their stores called the Market at Macy's, which is a showcase of new brands to their store, online brands, digital only brands, but is essentially a decent amount of square feet dedicated to new and innovative products or online only products. They've actually also purchased a concept store called Story. And what Story is it's essentially a space. I believe their first store is in New York, and that space gets completely remade. They get a complete makeover every 4 to 8 weeks. It gets a new design, new product assortment, new marketing messages. And what they do is they continuously refresh that so that when you come into their store, it's an experience and it's something that it's not going to feel the same every time that you go in there. And they've also invested in a company called Beta, which is a curated storefront as a service company. So they help brands that don't have storefronts come in and do pop-up type shops and get them into stores like Macy's and some of these others. Our fourth trend is retail as a service is going to continue to grow. And so when we say retail as a service, basically it's service-driven retailers or retailers opening service-driven stores. So Nordstrom's a great example. Nordstrom has a concept called Nordstrom Local, and Nordstrom Local actually isn't even a retail store. It's a service-only store. So you can go and get your nails done. You can go get your hair done. They have tailors to where you can actually go in and get alterations done. They have stylists in there. But the whole point is to offer the ancillary services that go along with what you would buy at a Nordstrom location and to provide those services for their customers. They've also purchased a company called Trunk Club, where they have it's essentially a personal designer curation service where you fill out a profile online and then they send you clothes and you keep what you like and you send back what you don't. But they've really jumped into the service game. The next one is Sephora. So Sephora, and I know there's a few communities on here that have these actual concepts in their communities, but Sephora is opening smaller format stores that only provide styling, makeovers, and sampling services. So you can actually go in and buy makeup, but what you can do is you can go in and sample things. You can have a stylist show you some new products. You can get your hair done. and then you can actually order stuff through their system or online, but you can't actually go in and purchase those goods. They get sent to you later. Dolly and Crate and Barrel is really focused around furniture delivery. And then J. Crew is doing something similar to Nordstrom in the sense that they have plans for a stronger partnership with Amazon Fashion, so that you can actually buy J. Crew clothing items online, and then they're sent to you through Amazon, and you can keep what you want, send back what you don't. Kind of like what Nordstrom's done with Trunk Club. But the focus being, we're going to see more and more of these traditional retailers start to focus on not only those new store concepts, but how they're offering more value through that square feet than just retail goods. And so one of the ways they're going to do that is they're going to start to incorporate these service components into it. Our last trend is continuing evolution of fulfillment. So I'm sure you see this in every grocery store around you, but I went to the grocery store the other day, and I used to only have to compete with other people that were stopping by after work to buy groceries. But now there's such a fulfillment driven culture that I actually have seen more personal shoppers picking for delivery services than I have actual grocery store shoppers. And what we're starting to see, and it's big in grocery right now, and it's going to be big in some other store concepts pretty soon, but a focus on using brick and mortar stores as a fulfillment hub. And so Whole Foods is a great example with Amazon. They've really significantly invested in using their Whole Food stores as fulfillment hubs for Amazon Prime deliveries, for grocery delivery. And so you're going to start to see a lot more of that, where most retailers are either significantly investing in site to store, pick up in store type mechanisms, or the delivery aspect where the grocery store, the Walmarts, the Targets of the world, the big box stores become more so fulfillment hubs for app and online purchases than they are strictly brick and mortar stores. So I think we're going to see more and more of that as we go through the year. Another aspect of that we've seen a little bit, but that I think is going to take longer, is the shift from e-commerce to a-commerce. And when we say that, what we're essentially talking about is automated commerce. So automating the customer experience. Amazon Go is a great example of that, how they have checkout free shopping. And I think we're going to see more and more of that approach with checkout free shopping. I'm not as optimistic as other people are. I think that's going to take a little bit longer than what we've seen so far. I don't think that by the end of 2019 that will be a whole lot more sophisticated than it has been. I think what we will start to see is a slow rollout of some of those different features for checkout free type environments. And one last trend that wasn't in our top five, but is an honorable mention, is that I think that investments in opportunity zones will skyrocket. So everyone's been talking about opportunity zones. We actually have a really in-depth, hour and a half long webinar on our website that you can download. But everyone's been talking about opportunity zones and what they mean and how communities can get the best of them. But no one's really known anything because they haven't had those regulations. So with the new regulations coming out late last year, I think we're going to start to see investors really warm up to the idea. Those guidelines provide structure and safety. And I think what we're going to see is, now that people are really warmed up to it, they're really going to start taking advantage of it. The last thing I think that we're going to see with opportunity zones is cities and economic development corporations taking advantage by starting their own funds. I think we're going to see a lot of that in 2019. So that really is all that we had today. Again, super quick presentation. We wanted to get the most amount of value to you in the shortest time possible. So we really appreciate you joining us. If you have any questions before we go, please drop them in that question box. We'll get back to you pretty shortly, probably this afternoon. But really appreciate you joining us. feel free to contact me. Again, my name is Austin Farmer. I'm a project director here at the Retail Coach. I actually manage all of our projects on the West Coast and in California. It's something we're doing for smaller communities. If you don't have a service where you get demographics regularly updated, we have a gold partnership with Esri. So we get pretty cheap demographic updates, and we have some access to some data that you can't get just as a community. So if that would be helpful to you, or if you need demographics for 2019, let me know. We can do that for you for $250. We can get you a branded community demographic packet. But if that'd be helpful, let me know. Be happy to do that for you. Otherwise, thanks so much for joining us, and let me know if there's anything that I can do for y'all.